The pillar of accordance hung above a searing red star, its alloys shimmering as they refracted light in mesmerizing patterns. The diplomatic station was an architectural marvel, symbolizing unity across empires, but today, it was a crucible of fear. Councillor Vrestin shifted uneasily within his robes, the delicate cerulean fibers clinging to his thin frame. The assembled delegates, rulers, strategists, and voices of countless worlds were here for one reason: to confront the humans. Whispers of impossible feats, tactical brilliance, and chaos had spread through the galaxy, leaving allies wary and enemies trembling. All of it centered on Captain Daniel Reyes. When the doors opened, the humans entered like a storm. Reyes led with a confident stride, wearing dark combat attire, marked only by Earth's emblem. His team followed: Nadia, the red-haired engineer with an analytical stare; Corporal Hayes, towering and cybernetically enhanced Private Lee, unassuming yet ever watchful; and Specialist Tomiko Ward, whose mischievous grin disguised deadly precision. Every step they took screamed of readiness, a fact not lost on the wary counselor. The rest then offered a courteous nod. "Captain Reyes, you honor us with your presence." Reyes returned the gesture, his expression polite but unreadable. "Councillor Vrestin, let's hope it's a productive discussion." The chamber's lights dimmed, amplifying the tension. Vrestin's voice echoed through the acoustics. "Captain, your people's actions during the Karn conflict have earned respect and fear. There are those who question the limits of human unpredictability. How can we trust that your next act of defiance won't be directed at us?" Murmurs swept through the chamber. Feathered talonids bristled, crystalline-eyed Euthari narrowed their gaze, and a luminous winged Ikenra flitted nervously. All eyes fell on Reyes. Councillor Reyes began, his tone level. "Humanity adapts to survive. We don't seek conflict, but if it finds us, we don't shy away. You're afraid because you can't predict us. That's not our problem, it's yours." "Predictability breeds stability," Captain Vrestin countered. "Without it, we invite chaos." "Chaos," Reyes repeated, a hint of a smile playing at his lips. "Another word for possibility, and in desperate times, possibility is exactly what you need." Before further arguments could ensue, the station's alarms blared a throaty, resonant warning. The chamber's central holo display erupted, revealing a fleet emerging from a rift in space-time. Ships of obsidian metal and crimson energy spiraled like a malevolent storm. Data identifiers scrambled, failing to categorize them. Their name broadcast across all frequencies: Xalvan Dominion. The pillar of accordance shook violently under the first barrage. Energy beams sliced through space, shredding the assembly's defensive fleet with brutal precision. Vrestin's composure cracked. Battle stations. Panic descended as dignitaries scrambled. Automated defenses whirred to life, but Reyes and his team moved without hesitation. "Nadia, get to the command nexus and stabilize power," Reyes barked. "Hayes, Lee, disrupt their comms. Tomiko, with me. We need access to Vrestin's War Council." The humans scattered with military precision. Reyes turned back to Vrestin, eyes blazing with intensity. "Counselor, does this station hold prisoners?" "Yes, but..." "Combat experience." "Or criminals," Vrestin spat. "Releasing them would be..." "If it saves lives, it's worth it," Reyes cut in, steel in his voice. "Your call." Vrestin hesitated. "Do it." Reyes nodded. "Tomiko, let's go." The corridors of the pillar were a war zone. Automated turrets fired on insectile Xalvan drones, living metal constructs that adapted to each shot. Sparks rained from damaged conduits as Nadia and her Vrak allies fought to stabilize systems. "Reyes, we're losing power fast," she said, her voice strained over comms. "Hold as long as you can," Reyes replied, leading Tomiko into the grim labyrinth of holding cells. Within, desperate eyes glared back. Ex-soldiers, rogue mercenaries, and deserters, dangerous, untrustworthy, but skilled. Reyes wasted no words. "Fight with us or die in your cells." A scarred Ketran stepped forward, defiance in his gaze. "I'd rather die fighting." Good Reyes tossed him a weapon. "Prove it." Chaos became their ally. The prisoners joined the fray, striking back at the Xalvan invaders with reckless ferocity. In a nearby storage bay, Hayes and Lee worked frantically. "You've got 30 seconds, Lee Hayes growled, holding off advancing drones with augmented strength. "Then I'll need 31, Lee muttered, fingers flying over cracked screens. "Make it 20. With a surge of energy, Lee triggered a pulse that scrambled Xalvan coordination. The brief confusion shifted the battle's tide. The true fight lay ahead. The Xalvan Colossus, the Black Maw, targeted the station's reactor core. Reyes knew this was no ordinary battle. It was an endgame move meant to obliterate everything. He assembled a strike team of humans, Vrock, and desperate allies. "We're taking the fight to them," he said, eyes cold with resolve. Explosive entry pods tore through the Maw's outer hull. Inside, the air crackled with heat and tension. The twisted architecture pulsed like living veins. Monstrous defenders surged forth, each attack a test of their limits. Reyes fought with everything he had, each strike a dance between precision and desperation. Tomiko hacked power nodes, redirecting energy to create destabilizing feedback. "Almost there." "Hold the line," Reyes shouted. Bloodied and exhausted, he led the charge deeper into the Maw. They reached the core, a labyrinth of cables and light. Reyes barked orders, coordinating sabotage. The clock ticked down. "Now we run," he said, breathless but unyielding. The Maw detonated, its implosion a brilliant starburst that tore through the void. The pillar of accordance shuddered, but it stood. In the aftermath, Vrestin approached Reyes, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. "You saved us, but at what cost?" "Whatever it takes," Reyes replied, eyes shadowed with fatigue. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's resolve, their willingness to trust the untrustworthy, to turn chaos into a weapon, and to adapt in the face of annihilation. Allies saw hope, enemies saw terror, and everyone understood why humanity was not to be underestimated. "We stand," Reyes said, as the stars awaited their next battle. "Because if we don't, no one will." The aftermath of the Black Maw's destruction was a fragile reprieve. Smoke still curled from scorched bulkheads aboard the Pillar of Accordance, and emergency crews worked tirelessly to stabilize failing systems. Despite the bruised victory, the station stood as a testament to the ferocious determination of its defenders, and at the heart of that defense were the humans, battered but unbroken. Captain Reyes and his team barely had time to catch their breath before the weight of the galaxy's eyes fell upon them again. The council chamber, now repaired and pulsing with a dim, cautious energy, convened once more. Vrestin stood before a holomap displaying the ruins of Xalvan vessels and the echoes of collapsing rifts. The silence was deafening, each delegate grappling with the enormity of what they had faced. Reyes felt every gaze, some grateful, others wary, a few openly fearful. He stood with his shoulders back, refusing to shrink under scrutiny. The galaxy needed answers, but first, they needed a leader who wouldn't flinch. "Captain Reyes," Vrestin said, his voice straining against the fatigue. "You've bought us time, but I fear it's only a sliver. The Xalvan were more than conquerors. Their desperation, it suggests something deeper." "Agreed," Reyes said, his voice low but carrying weight. "They're not just fighting to conquer, they're fighting because they're afraid. We need to find out why." A Talonid representative stepped forward, feathers bristling. Afraid? They nearly tore the station apart. What force could compel such ancient terrors to desperation? "The wound," Reyes said, letting the word hang in the air. The chamber fell into stunned silence. "We encountered it within their stronghold, of force, or being so powerful it can't be fully comprehended. They called it the wound that time forgot, and they're willing to sacrifice everything to contain it." Whispers erupted like wildfire. The notion of a threat even the Xalvan feared was too much to bear. Vrestin raised a hand, silencing the chaos. "If this wound is real, then we face more than just a war. We face a consuming force that even our greatest enemies fear." Reyes nodded grimly. "That's why the Xalvan are desperate. But their methods, burning everything in their path, will destroy us all if they're not stopped. We need to find another way." "And how do you propose to do that?" demanded the Uthari emissary, eyes glowing with restrained anxiety. "Blindly charge into the heart of this thing?" "No," Reyes said, and his team stiffened at his tone. We go where the Xalvan don't expect. We uncover their secrets. We find out what they fear and why, and we stop it without tearing apart everything in our path. Preparations began immediately. The Vanguard's Edge was outfitted for a reconnaissance mission into the heart of Xalvan territory, its systems upgraded with stealth capabilities and sensor disruptors. The air aboard the ship was taut with anticipation. Each crew member knew they were heading into a hornet's nest with no guarantee of return. Nadia worked tirelessly, calibrating power arrays and refining shield harmonics. "Reyes, I hope you know what you're doing," she said, her voice tinged with both exhaustion and defiance. "If we're going to poke the hornet's nest, we need more than a stick." "Trust me," Reyes replied, the edge of a smile betraying his own nerves. "We'll bring fire, too." Corporal Hayes inspected his weaponry, the glow of his cybernetic implants casting harsh light on his scarred features. "Just make sure we get close enough to sting." Their journey took them deep into Xalvan-controlled space, a graveyard of shattered worlds and ancient scars. Signs of desperate battles littered their path: derelict ships, ruined colonies, the silent echoes of civilizations wiped away in the wake of the Dominion's scorched earth tactics. Tomiko watched it all with a hardened gaze, her humor replaced by a grim determination. "They're not just afraid. They're terrified." "Then we use that," Reyes said, more to himself than anyone else. Their destination was Yirath, an uncharted Xalvan hub veiled in gravitational anomalies that twisted light and space. Intelligence suggested it was a focal point for Dominion Command, a place where strategies were born and secrets hoarded. If they wanted answers, they had to infiltrate Yirath. The mission began with a calculated risk. Using captured Xalvan frequencies, the Vanguard's Edge slipped past outer patrols. Within the anomaly-ridden atmosphere of Yirath, visibility was nearly non-existent. Jagged spires of crystalline metal jutted from the surface, humming with energy that warped perception. Every sensor readout was unreliable, every step a gamble. As they breached the perimeter, Reyes issued rapid commands. "Tomiko, Lee, create diversions. Nadia, keep the ship hidden. Hayes, with me." The team split with practiced efficiency. Tomiko and Lee deployed beacons that mimicked Xalvan energy signatures, drawing sentries away from critical sectors. Nadia worked in the shadows, tapping into Xalvan systems to disable security grids and reroute patrols. Raz and Hayes pressed forward, slipping through shifting corridors and halls that felt almost alive. They reached a central archive, a vast chamber filled with pulsating data nodes and shimmering holo displays. It was a treasure trove of intelligence, but it was guarded. A contingent of elite Xalvan warriors hulking biomechanical giants blocked their path. Reyes glanced at Hayes. No words were needed. They moved as one, Reyes's blade a blur of motion while Hayes's augmented strength shattered armor and bones. Each second was a struggle, each breath a defiance. When the last Guardian fell, Reyes stood panting, his grip tight on his weapon. "We've come too far to fail now." As they accessed the data, fragments of truth emerged. Images and symbols that defied comprehension. Accounts of ancient battles, worlds consumed, and a growing void that devoured all. The wound was not a mere entity, it was a paradox, a tear in the fabric of existence itself, and it was spreading. Reyes Nadia's voice crackled through comms, urgency lacing every word. "Xalvan reinforcements are converging. We need to move." "We've got what we need," Reyes replied, downloading critical data. "Fall back to the extraction point." The retreat was chaos. Xalvan forces closed in, their tactics unrelenting and precise. The corridor shifted, trying to entrap them. Tomiko's voice came through, strained but unyielding. "Explosives in place. I'll cover you." They reached the surface as detonations rocked the hub, collapsing structures and creating temporary escape routes. But the Xalvan's desperation was clear. They fought with a fervor born of fear, throwing everything at the intruders. Nadia piloted the Vanguard's Edge with unmatched skill, weaving through energy blasts and debris. "Get on board, now." Reyes and Hayes dove onto the ramp, plasma fire searing past them. The ship ascended, engine screaming. Tomiko, bloodied but grinning, clapped a hand on Reyes's shoulder. "Remind me to never doubt your recklessness again." Noted, Reyes said, catching his breath. Now let's make sure it was worth it. Back aboard the Pillar of Accordance, the data revealed horrors and hope alike. The wound's nature became clearer, a force that defied reality, consuming everything it touched. But amidst the darkness, clues pointed to a potential way to contain it without destruction. The cost would be high, but there was a chance. Vrestin listened, his expression grave. You risked everything for this, and now we stand at the precipice. That's where we do our best work, Reyes replied, but we can't do it alone. The realization spread. Humanity's terrifying strength lay not only in their resilience, but in their refusal to accept impossible odds. Allies who once doubted now saw hope, even as they feared the chaos humans embodied. Our enemies, even those as formidable as the Xalvan, understood that facing humans meant facing the unknown. The galaxy braced for what lay ahead, knowing that when the wound stirred, humanity would be there unyielding, relentless, and ready to fight for a future no one else dared to hope for. The tension aboard the Pillar of Accordance had reached a fever pitch. The revelations from Yerath weighed heavily on every soul, human and alien alike. Captain Reyes stood with his team at the heart of the War Council chamber, their faces etched with exhaustion and determination. Around them, the galaxy's most powerful leaders absorbed the full implications of the data they'd risked everything to retrieve. Vrestin stepped forward, his eyes flickering with barely restrained emotion. The wound, a force that devours reality itself, and you believe it can be contained. Reyes nodded, though doubt gnawed at the edges of his resolve. The data suggests a containment method, a convergence of energy patterns that could seal the rift and stabilize its growth. But it's a desperate gambit, and it requires resources, coordination, and sacrifice. A gamble, hissed a talented emissary, feathers bristling. You would risk our lives, our worlds, on a mere possibility. Reyes met the emissary's glare, unflinching. What's the alternative? Stand by while the Xalvan burn everything to stop it. If we wait, there won't be a galaxy left to save. Vrestin raised a hand to quiet the murmur of dissent. Captain Reyes is right. The wound will consume everything if left unchecked. But this plan, it requires more than just resolve. It demands that we act as one. Good luck with that, muttered Tomiko under her breath, earning a few bitter chuckles from nearby humans. Unity isn't a luxury we have, Reyes said, his voice hard. It's a necessity. And if we're going to stop the wound, we need every ally willing to fight. Preparations for the final confrontation moved with urgency. The galaxy's fractured alliances strained under the weight of cooperation, but fear of annihilation held them together barely. Reyes' team worked tirelessly, coordinating efforts with disparate species, adapting plans on the fly, and preparing for the unimaginable. Every moment carried a sense of finality, as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath. The containment effort required creating a network of resonance nodes, each linked to a central device that would channel and redirect the wound's energy. Reyes and his team were tasked with leading a strike force deep into Xalvan territory, where the largest rift, the Maw of Oblivion, threatened to tear reality apart. If they failed to activate the nodes, there would be no second chance. The journey to the Maw was harrowing. Xalvan forces swarmed to intercept, their desperation palpable. The Dominion ships moved like predators driven to madness, their movements chaotic yet terrifyingly precise. The combined fleet of humans and their allies fought tooth and claw to break through. Ships burned, lives were lost, but they pressed on. The Vanguard's Edge spearheaded the assault, weaving through enemy lines with almost reckless abandon. Nadia's hands flew over the controls, sweat pouring down her face. We've got incoming from every angle. Just keep us moving, Reyes shouted, gripping his seat as explosions rocked the hull. We're almost there. The Maw loomed ahead, an impossible tear in space that pulsed with sickly light. Fractured debris, remnants of consumed worlds, orbited its periphery. Reyes' breath caught in his throat. They were staring into oblivion itself. Hayes, Tomiko, Lee, gear up, he ordered. Nadia, you're with us. We're planting the primary node. The team descended onto a platform suspended precariously near the Maw's edge, the gravitational forces threatening to tear them apart. Energy crackled and warped, distorting reality. Xalvan defenders emerged from rifts, their forms twisted by proximity to the wound. Each step forward was a battle blades clashed, energy bursts lit the darkness, and screams echoed across the void. Nadia, status on the node Reyes demanded, blocking a strike from a hulking Xalvan monstrosity. Almost. There she shouted, hands moving with frantic precision. Sparks flew as she connected power conduits, her face lit by the glow of energy cycling through the device. Just a few more seconds. They didn't have seconds. More Xalvan reinforcements poured in, driven by both fear and rage. Reyes fought with every ounce of strength left, but he knew it wouldn't be enough. Time was slipping. Then, the unexpected. A Xalvan commander, a towering figure, whose armor radiated raw energy, stepped forward. It paused, as if weighing a decision, then spoke in a voice that resonated with ancient pain. "You would sacrifice yourselves to seal it." Reyes, bloodied but unbowed, met its gaze. "Yes, and you would burn everything to stop it." "To save what remains," the Xalvan said, the weight of millennia in its words. "We have a chance," Reyes said, his voice raw. "But we need to work together, or everything ends." For a breathless moment, time seemed to stand still. Then the Xalvan commander raised its arm, not in attack, but in signal. Its warriors halted, confusion and fear etched across their faces. It turned to Reyes. "We will hold the line." "Then let's finish this," Reyes said, determination blazing. Nadia activated the node and energy surged. Across the battlefield, Allied forces triggered their own nodes, creating a latticework of resonance that converged on the maw. The rift screamed, a cacophony that tore at mind and soul. The ground shook. Space fractured. But the wound fought back. Tendrils of unreality lashed out, consuming everything in their path. One wrapped around Reyes's leg, pulling him toward oblivion. He gritted his teeth, fighting with every ounce of strength. Tomiko, bleeding and battered, lunged forward, slicing the tendril away. "Not today, Captain." The nodes pulsed in unison, light blinding, pure erupted from the maw, consuming the darkness. The wound shrieked one final time, then collapsed inward, sealing itself within the resonance field. Silence fell, broken only by ragged breaths and the distant crackle of energy. The battle was over. Back aboard the Pillar of Accordance, Reyes and his team stood among the survivors, humans, Xalvan, and countless other species who had fought side by side. The cost had been immense. Worlds lost, lives sacrificed. But they had done the impossible. They had contained the wound. Rest then approached, his expression solemn. "You did it. You turned chaos into a weapon, and saved us all." Reyes, exhausted beyond words, managed a nod. "It's what we do." The galaxy now understood. Humanity's strength wasn't in their weapons or their tactics, it was in their refusal to surrender, their willingness to make allies of enemies, and their unbreakable resolve to fight for hope when all seemed lost. As the stars steadied and the remnants of the battle faded, one truth remained: humanity had proven themselves the galaxy's most terrifying and most necessary warriors. And as long as darkness loomed, they would be ready.